Hello, welcome to my second video tutorial for rocket science. Today we're going to explain game performance enhancements for rocket science. So how to enhance the game performance. Sometimes you may notice you're flying mid-flight and all of a sudden your game just starts kind of getting lower in FPS. You can go ahead, open your map and check out how many things are in current physics. This is important to realize. As you can see here, I have some rockets that are gonna hit the ground here soon, and they're gonna blow up. Now these are in physics mode when they enter an atmosphere, and I'm blocked to 4 time warp when they are in that station. As you can see here, they just hit 4. So to prevent this from happening, you're going to want to either delete the things that are going to fall into the planet, or wait until they are done with their physics. As you can see, this rocket has now decided to touch down, and when he finally blows up, I am now unlocked again on that time warp, so be sure of that. So now you can see that my FPS has returned to a higher rate. We now always want to take off on 1 warp speed. It can cause a crash. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and take off. Launching a rocket, if you ever wanted to know what your TWR is, you can hover over the 1 stage that it's firing, and it will tell you here what that TWR is. Now, we're going to go over some things that are very important to know about the difference between rocket science and Kerbal Space Program. Now, if you are a, RSMM, or, a Kerbal Real Solar System player, there are some things you're going to notice that are a little different than regular Kerbal. You should already understand that 2.0 is the new 1.0, on where you need to really base the TWR of your rocket. Earth is a 2.0 TWR rocket. 2.35 safe. It depends on the weight of your rocket. One thing RSMM does not simulate fully is range. So for instance, they may have 1-to-1 scale planets, which are great, but they do not have 1-to-1 scale and distance away from a planet. This is significant. You go ahead to the main menu, join the Discord on the top right of the main menu, head over to tools. You can download my RSMM tool and my rocket science tool, and you can input the date of your current rocket science day and choose the target planet, and it will tell you what day you need to fast forward to, what year, and it will show you when you need to take off to reach that planet. We're going to talk about atmosphere on Earth. You see, in the morning time, right, the moisture in the atmosphere is not really evaporated by the sun, and it is easier and it is better to take off on these times. It saves more fuel and it gets you to break through the ozone layer faster, versus in the afternoon when the atmosphere is thicker and harder to trudge through. It costs more fuel to break through. Remember that is simulated. Also, when you're dealing with a planet that's very big, you want to be able to turn your rocket, and also turning your rocket while going up is ideal. We're going to talk about when something is, identifiers on where you are to base your turns. You'll see our altitude here. Remember that the ozone layer in rocket science is simulated. That starts at 10,000. You're going to need enough speed and energy to break through the ozone layer. How do you identify if you do not have enough velocity or if your weight balance is not correct? Well, if your weight balance is not correct or your thrust line is off, let me explain thrust line. Here I'm going to have a quick demonstration of what thrust line is. I've created a chart. It's also in the Discord. Your inner steering rockets, the gimbal rockets on the inside, and the outer rockets that do not steer. This creates a proper thrust line for a rocket. It makes it more efficient. In rocket science, your outer rocket should have less gimbal, just like in real life. This would be the bottom of the rocket. And we're going to talk about energy inside of a rocket and energy pass through. So as a rocket is continuously going in one direction, energy will build up onto the top of the rocket and begin a stream and start to flow down the rocket. Let me explain that. As a rocket then starts to turn, the energy pass through of the rocket will break and start to diminish as the rocket turns. As the rocket stops turning, the energy will increase in the efficiency of the rocket, and the velocity of the rocket will also increase. The less you turn in a rocket, the more fuel efficient it is. Here's another graph to explain that. And now the inner fuel modules of how energy inside passes through the engines. So the outside of the rocket has to catch up with the inside energies of the rocket. This is important. When launching a rocket, we immediately want to get our rocket on the right direction as quickly as possible. But we also want it to not turn as much as possible. It's a game of balance. What I like to do personally is I like to get over to the red line as quickly as possible and hold it. As you can see, we're at 6,557 meters. At 10,000, we have to hit the ozone layer. We need a lot of speed. We need a lot of power to break through the ozone layer. If we do not have enough, the rocket will bounce off of the ozone layer and come back down to Earth, or it will slow down inside of the ozone layer and eventually not be able to break through and come back down to Earth. It's like a rock skipping on the water. You will need as much power and you will need as much energy, but you also need to be going the right direction, because once you break through the ozone layer, it's like all of the things that were holding you back now have stopped holding you back, creating what you would think visually as a slingshot, and it will slingshot you. But if you're not going to slingshot yourself in the right direction, you are going to hurt your fuel efficiency. 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Notice how we are now slowly turning. That is the ozone layer telling us we are in it. 100,000 is zero pressure. Once we've safely gotten to around 30 or 28, I could start to turn. I'm gonna start to hit the equator now. I really want to be going diagonally, and I'm going to explain why. Right here, you're going to need a lot of speed to reach orbit around Earth. You're going to need 7,000. Now it depends on how late or how early you've reached 7,000, but you need to, or depending on how much you weigh, be burning at 7,000 for a specific amount of seconds in order to achieve orbit around Earth. So what does this entail? This entails that we must start turning at 20 or 25 or 28, depending on your weight. If you are heavy, maybe it is 22. If you are light, maybe it is 20 or 19 or 14. It depends, okay? Values like these change dramatically, but they're all in the same kind of scoped area. Let's go ahead and start our turn. And remember, as the fuel tanks are low, the TWR, thrust to weight ratio, increases significantly. What does this mean? Well, this means that if we're aiming in one direction, our TWR will increase dramatically. And if we need to get a sideways velocity, we need to get speed going laterally and not vertically. We of course want to be facing laterally when our fuel tanks are low on this stage. Here we go. 2,000. 3,000. 4,000. Remember that number, 4,000 on the first stage. Now, we could go to the second stage and figure out how to win through this problem, or we could relaunch and we could do a better job. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go to our assembly shop and we're going to relaunch our rocket and we're going to try to get it a lot higher on the first stage. We knew that we were too vertical. It means we need to go more lateral. I'm staying within the green. You can build a rocket that can go far beyond the green if you create more lateral rockets. And I'm going to try to get to that red line as quickly as possible and hold it there so the energy can pass through the rocket and it can build up momentum. I don't want to go over too quick or I'll tip the rocket. And we're going to hold it here. Do we have enough velocity to get through the ozone layer? It looks like we did. We actually had more velocity than last time. We're at 16. I'm gonna start turning a little earlier. I'm gonna try to get to the equator here at 27. We're gonna see how that does. I'm picking up that lateral speed, which should increase our velocity here. We're at 3,000. And you're going to see that it's probably going to be less here. Or is it going to be more? And there you go. So that was at 4,500, which was as much as we could squeeze out of this rocket. So now we're going to hit the equator just a little below it. We're going to roll. And this is where you would decide to steer. What direction do you want to go? So we're going 5,000 right now. And the rocket, as you can see, is all dumping its junk into the ocean. That is something you really want to strive for when campaign mode will one day be released into this game. So your rocket can, survive. Now we could save fuel here. We're at 5,000. And we could wait until we reach this point here before we start burning. So if we wanted, we could hit the prograde and we could time warp to this point. Now, your time warp is going to go to 4 when all of the junk is about to hit the ground, so the physics engine doesn't crash. And now we can begin our burn. Now we are 409 kilometers, which is pretty efficient. Begin our burn. We're 6,000 now. Told you once we get to 7,000, we hit that orbit around Earth. And just like that, we are able to. And we have a stable orbit around Earth. Nice. That is my second tutorial video for rocket science on the basics of creating a rocket. Okay. And the third video series will be going to different planets, but we'll start off with the moon next. Thanks for watching and have a good day. Reach all of the planets for me, please. Have a good one. Bye.